Hello, Knights. We are the Office of Career Services, and this is Communicate with Confidence, effective verbal and nonverbal communication skills. This workshop supports the UCF wellness pillars of resiliency, the ability to develop and demonstrate skills to adapt to life experiences, and cultural conscious, the ability to acknowledge and incorporate an understanding of the cultural and social context of individuals and the environment. Both pillars are symbolized with the symbols at the top of the screen, the bouncy ball and the world map. Today, we will uncover what communication skills are, the different types of communication we tend to use, how it relates to the job search, and look at some challenges and ways to overcome them. We will also discuss some helpful tips for our extroverts and introverts in the room. And lastly, we'll talk about ways to practice and prepare your communication skills. Let's get started. In 2018, the National Association of Colleges and Employers sent out a survey where 95.9% of employer respondents rated oral and written communication skills as essential for the workplace. But only 41.6% of respondents rated recent graduates as proficient in this skill. This means there is a large gap, a significant gap in graduates' abilities to effectively communicate within the work setting. Now that we know this is an important area of improvement, it is essential for students and recent grads to start working on developing their communication skills early on in their careers. Now, it's important for us to talk about what is communication. Communication is an essential skill used in all parts of our lives. It's the messages we deliver to one another and the ways we get our points and thoughts across. It's how you articulate your thoughts and ideas, both written and in oral form. It is public speaking skills, the ability to express your ideas to others. It is in writing and editing memos, letters, emails, and reports clearly and effectively. The ability to sell and influence others, and it involves practicing active listening. There are two main types of communication methods: verbal and nonverbal. Verbal being what you say, using language, sound, words, tone, pitch, speed, and writing to communicate it in person, over the phone, digitally through emails or reports. And then there's nonverbal, how you say it, using gestures, body language, facial expressions, movement, timing, pitch, touch, and anything else that provides visual or auditory cues to communication. A great way for us to kind of see some examples of nonverbal communication is through the show Friends. So let's go ahead and pause here to take a look at the show Friends and learn more about those nonverbal cues. I'm just going to check my audio real quick.
I'm pregnant. And you're the father, by the way, but you got
No one could get him to forgive us.
I don't know.
I'm telling you. I can do it. Yeah, you can do it.
It's like you're always stuck in second gear. It was like this crazy-eyed, hairy beast man. He was like a Bigfoot or a Yeti or something. Hi, just so you know, we didn't mean to fog you. We actually thought you were like a Yeti or something. Hi.
So you like the short hair better?
What? Yeti? Danny?
Babe? Hello? Baby?
I'll be there for you. When the rain starts to fall, I'll be there for you. Like a baby, I'll be there for you.
You two are happy, then I'm happy for you. I'm fine.
Really?
Absolutely. I'm fine. Totally fine. I don't know why it's coming out all loud and squeaky, because really, I'm fine.
I'll be there for you. 'Cause you're there for me too.
Joe? Well, I guess Joey went home. Oh, and look, there's still one box that I have to unpack. Oh my God, you almost gave me a heart attack. Oh.
Still in bed at 10 and work again at 8.
My best friend and my sister. I cannot believe this.
Sorry, but it's true. I love him too.
My best friend and my sister. I cannot believe this.
Good breakfast so far. Things are going great. Your mother warned you there'd be days like these.
Let's put aside the fact that you accidentally picked up my grandmother's ring and you accidentally proposed to Rachel.
People do this. I don't really know what that means. I'm sorry.
And if it isn't, then you'll take the week the most. I'll be there for you. I'll be there for you. I'll be.
Alrighty. So I have to say, favorite example of how communication with nonverbals can be misunderstood or miscommunicated is when Ross said, at first in more of an angry tone of voice, "My best friend and my sister." And then he just changed his pitch, he changed his tone, and he said it in a more accepting and loving way. "Oh, my best friend and my sister." Now, there can be miscommunication and misunderstanding, right? So, depending on your upbringing, your motivations, influences, maybe your cultural backgrounds or lived experiences, we all can interpret nonverbal and our verbal messages differently from one another. And so there's that room for miscommunication or chances for misunderstandings. You know, what we say and how we say it can be taken in the wrong way and are all easy ways to be judged or dismissed in your job search or in an interview, and can have an effect on others' perception of your work performance or your professional identity. One example where we don't want these challenges to influence the outcome of our communicating is through the job search.
Communication with employers is so important when you're looking for a job, and it starts as early as you attending a networking event or submitting an application for a job posting, and it'll go through the interview and beyond into your careers. Here are some major examples of times where you're communicating in the job search. For starters, in completing the application or submitting or completing a online profile, like completing your Handshake account or your LinkedIn account. You want to make sure that you complete it clearly and honestly. Don't leave anything blank. Give as much information as possible. Also, in your resume and cover letter, you want to explain your strengths and accomplishments. Make sure that there are no errors on your documents and that there is consistent formatting throughout the document. Also, make sure to have relevant experiences and accurate work history. Now, when we're thinking about communicating on the phone, let's say through a phone interview, you want to speak clearly, demonstrate enthusiasm and professionalism. You can smile, and you smiling on the phone will help with your tone of voice and your pitch. Be honest too, right? Don't exaggerate your experiences, but also don't undersell yourself. Also, find a noise-free background. That way there's no distractions through the phone. Now, when you're in person settings, polish your elevator pitch. Use strong eye contact and warm smile. Use open posture and think about the proximity. Before the pandemic, we would say make sure that you're in close proximity where you can hear the person that you're talking to, where you can share a handshake. But during the pandemic, be mindful of the proximity of when you're in person. Think about maybe the few feet away from each other, but still having that strong eye contact. Also, practice having appropriate questions to ask about a company or a position that you're interested in. And then in the interview, again, speak clearly and smile. Have that warm and welcoming energy to you. Have strong eye contact. Use the STAR method or STAR technique that we're going to be talking about in a few slides. Use open posture, calming gestures. And think about your professional appearance, whether that's in person with your attire or whether that's virtually with your lighting of your room and the background that you have. These are reminders to boost your confidence in the moments where you're communicating your thoughts and ideas. So think about your posture and your gestures. Sit up straight. Keep your arms near your side, or if you tend to use your hands a lot like I do, keep them nicely folded into your lap. Lean forward and nod slightly to demonstrate that interest, that you're understanding what they're communicating. Minimize any animated gestures like quotation marks or talking with your hands. Like I mentioned, a good thing to do is to fold your hand on your lap. Refrain from touching your face, your hair, ears, even jewelry, right? Because this can be a distraction for the person in front of you. When you're thinking about your verbals, make sure to speak clearly at a normal pace. Adjust your pitch appropriately. Increase when you're conveying excitement, and then decrease when you're discussing something more serious or when you're actively listening. Avoid filler words like, yeah. Now, it doesn't mean that you're going to eliminate all of them, but you want to make sure that you are significantly decreasing the amount of times you use filler words. And then refrain from forced or misplaced laughter. So if you are a person that has a nervous laugh, try to calm down before getting into those environments or settings, and refrain from having that misplaced laughter, because you don't want that to come across in a negative way to the other person. Avoid distractions, right? So leave your phone on silent, or maybe just in your car when you're in those settings. Refrain from gazing at the clock or objects in the room that are distracting to you. Try to not look at your watch as well, and minimize those background noises And whenever you're fidgeting, try to minimize that as possible. So shaking of your limbs, tapping of a pen, picking your nails. I know sometimes if you have long hair, you might fidget with your hair. And again, those are just distractions for the person in front of you. And then practice active listening. So focus on the conversation. Don't interpret or don't interrupt the person. Allow for them to finish their thought before you respond. Sometimes we listen to respond instead of listen to understand, and that can get in the way of of the conversation that's being held. Read their nonverbal signs. So clarify if they looked confused at what you're saying. Adjust your tone if they look bored. Frequently, but not so constantly, use strong eye contact, right? So you want it to be natural with your eye contact. Display enthusiasm and interest as well. Another way to help boost your confidence is by coming in prepared to a networking event and your interviews with questions of your own. So do your research and ask questions about the company, the position, the project that you're maybe applying for, or the industry trends and competition. Those are great examples of questions that you can ask about. Other questions that we have, what do you look for in a new candidate? What training programs does your company offer? What geographical areas are you hiring for? So these are all just other examples of great questions that you can ask employers and at networking events. So I'm going to pause here. That way you can maybe take a screenshot of these questions so that you can refer back to in the future. Alrighty. Another way to boost your confidence is prepare an elevator pitch, or as some may call it, your infomercial. This is going to be your 60-second elevator or infomercial that introduces yourself at a networking event, career fair, or in the interview. So to do this, you want to talk about your present, past, and future self. Think about your present. What are you doing right now? What are some classes you're taking? When do you graduate? What are some job titles that you are currently working under? Are you in some leadership roles, or do you want to talk about some current projects that you're working on? Then include your past self. What have you done that relates to the position or industry or even company that you are talking to? That can be experiences that are from internships, part-time, full-time jobs, maybe coursework or classes and projects you've done, maybe volunteer experiences you've done in the past that is relevant to the employer. Then talk about your future self. This could be your goals, positions that you're looking for. Maybe talk about your career interests and maybe your possible interest in furthering your education. Now, when you're developing this pitch, you want to make sure that you practice it with family, friends. Go to your professor office hours and practice it with them. Even find a mentor that you can go ahead and rehearse this pitch with. And you should rehearse this to the point where it feels natural to you and you can communicate it with strong eye contact and a warm smile. Other ways to feel prepared and confident for the interview is to use the STAR technique, especially when you're responding to behavioral-based interview questions. It'll help to build security and trust within yourself. And remember that who better to talk about you than you? So the STAR method includes describing the situation that answers the question, give specific examples relating to the question being asked, and provide enough detail to give context. Then describe the task assigned to you or the task that you initiated. Be specific in your example, relating back to the question that was asked to you. Then talk about the actions you took or the steps that you took. Give detail to the specific steps in managing that situation or task, and be sure to highlight what you did individually to contribute to the group environment, for example. Then wrap it up by talking about the results or the outcomes of the situation or task that you accomplished. That answers the question, right? So describe the significance of the results and what you learned from the experience. Overall, the STAR technique really conveys the experiences you've had in a concise and straightforward method. Because we are all different and unique, we may have to get out of our comfort zones to grow our communication skills and to make sure that we are enhancing ourselves. So here are some tips for our introverts and extroverts. So for our introverts, small talk can be difficult. And so focus on deeper topics or go more in depth with questioning. Remember to display verbal and nonverbal cues to show that you are listening. Silent thinking can sometimes be seen as not being engaged. If you need time to think before you answer a question, just communicate that. Let them know, great question. I may need a moment to think about a good example to share. And then focus on quality of conversations rather than the number of contacts when you're in networking environments, right? Now for my extroverts, think before speaking and listen carefully before reacting or responding. Sometimes when you're so excited to answer a question or to give your perspective, we tend to forget to take some time to really think about what we're about to communicate. Wait patiently during silent pauses and don't interrupt speakers. Sometimes those awkward pauses may feel uncomfortable, but maybe the person in front of you is just collecting their thoughts. And so it's completely okay to be patiently waiting during that time. And also adjust your speed and tone to match the person that you're speaking with, right? If they're calm, cool, and collected, adjust your tone to reflect that calm, cool, and collected energy as well. Next, monitor your facial expressions, body language, and posture. Coming off as overexcited can also be seen as aggressive, so you want to adjust accordingly. And although I know that maybe for some individuals, facial expressions may be a little more hard to control, I know that's something that I tend to use my facial expressions and use my hands to help communicate my thoughts, but it's not necessarily eliminating them. It's just monitoring them, being mindful of how your face and maybe your gestures and your hands are being understood by the person in front of you. Lastly, the best way to build up your confidence when communicating is practicing. So I like to say that practice makes permanent, not perfect, right? We want consistency and we want our strong skills to be permanent, right? So make an appointment on Handshake to practice your interviewing skills, or have your resume and hiring documents critiqued by a career services professional. Also use resources like Big Interview and LinkedIn Learning Pathways to build up your skills. A Big Interview is where you can record yourself answering questions and play them back to review them. Now, LinkedIn Learning Pathways are already made and curated videos and courses from countless career topics, including communication skills, interviewing strategies, and so much more. So utilize those skills that can be found on our website, which is career.ucf.edu. Ultimately, though, continue to work on yourself and your skills. It will get you one step closer to reaching your career goals. And I promise that practice makes permanent, right? So practicing for the better is a great way to just start this process of developing yourself. With that being said, thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you found this workshop helpful in developing better communication skills and confidence in those times where you're communicating to others. Please reach out to Career Services if you have any questions. You can reach us at career.ucf.edu, or you can contact us at 407-823-2361. And don't forget to follow us on our various social media platforms where we are constantly sharing helpful tips and upcoming event reminders. So with that being said, vamos Knights, go Knights and charge on. Thank you.